Black Adam is the latest film in the DCEU, so today I'm going to rank every PG-13 film in the DCEU from worst to best. I'm only ranking the PG-13 films, so Birds of Prey or James Gunn's version of Suicide Squad are not going to be on this list. And also, to keep things fair, I'm only ranking them based on the theatrical versions, so if a film has an extended cut like Batman vs. Superman, also not going to be on this list. So with that in mind, let's get started. Coming in at last place at number 9 is Wonder Woman 1984, a film I was incredibly disappointed by. I loved the first one and was very excited for this, but I don't know if it's because they gave too much creative freedom this time around or what it was, but this film is a mess. It's almost 3 hours long, and the first 20 minutes of it are Amazon Olympics, and that would be fine if it actually tied into anything, but it doesn't. It's just there. Like, you can skip past that entire sequence, and by doing that, the film actually opens in a much more natural way. However, even past that first 20 minutes, the story is still all over the place, and its rules are inconsistent. The plot revolves around a magic rock that can grant the user wishes, and Pedro Pascal's character's wish is to become the wishing rock, and they make it very clear that in order to grant wishes, he has to be physically touching the person. Yet, in the third act, his plan is to go on TV and grant the wishes of millions of people at once. Like, just because you're watching someone on TV does not mean you are touching them, so the film basically broke its own rules for the sake of plot convenience. Cheetah's motivations for becoming a villain are also incredibly stupid, and the film actually manages to ruin Wonder Woman as a character because she becomes way too clingy towards her dead boyfriend Steve, to the point where her wish for him is to come back, but it's not actually him, it's some other dude who to her looks like him, so she basically possessed a guy against his will, which in a way kind of makes her the villain of the movie. And also she can somehow fly now in this movie. Like, she could jump long distances, but now she can actually fly like Superman, and this takes place before Justice League, so why didn't she do that in that movie? The action is fun, but the story is an absolute mess, and it just does whatever the heck it wants, whenever the heck it wants. This movie angers me. Number 8, Justice League, the theatrical version. A film that, at the time, I liked, but then the Snyder Cut came out, and it was a much better version of the film that made a lot more sense. So as a result, whenever I'm watching this version, it feels very chopped up, almost like an edited-for-TV version. The actors are great, they work well off each other, even if some of them are a bit problematic now, Ezra Miller. The action is big scale, but you can tell where the reshoots were. You can tell where Joss Whedon vandalized the script with his humor. So now that the extended cut is out, this version of the film just feels very odd. Number 7, Suicide Squad 2016. Granted, the first 15 minutes are a bit clunky, and the villain isn't the best, but I still have a lot of fun with this film. Controversial opinion, but I actually kind of like Jared Leto's performance as Joker. He brought his own style to it, he had a lot of fun. Margot Robbie was perfectly cast as Harley Quinn, and while the rest of the squad, except maybe Deadshot, are a bit underdeveloped, the whole cast is a very fun, natural dynamic off each other. The action scenes are a ton of fun, but it does kind of drag a bit in the third act. But if I'm in the mood for a fun, turn-off-your-brain comic book movie, this is one of my picks. Number 6, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, the theatrical cut. I get that the plot is overly convoluted with cameos from other Justice League members trying to get to the team up as quickly as possible. I get that Jesse Eisenberg was miscast as Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor is supposed to be this brilliant genius megalomaniac, and Eisenberg felt more like he was playing a Joel Schumacher Batman movie. But in terms of delivering on what the title promised, which is Batman vs. Superman, Batman and Superman fighting, I think we got that, even if the reasons for doing so don't really make a lot of sense. And I like the action scenes, and again, this is another one of those films where it's just kind of fun to watch as long as you don't think way too hard about the story. Number 5, Aquaman. A fun globe-trotting adventure, but it is a bit bogged down by having one villain that's really cool and another villain that's kind of uninteresting. Aquaman's brother isn't really that great of a villain, and it would have been much better if Black Manta had been the main villain because he was a lot cooler, he was a bit more fleshed out. The dialogue is kind of clunky, but the action for the most part is well done. The story is a bit derivative of the first Thor movie, but for a movie whose main character's power is talking to fish, this was better than it had any right to be. It actually feels like they took it seriously, they wanted to make something good, and I think what they turned out is pretty watchable. Number 4, Black Adam, which really should have been titled Black Adam versus the Justice Society or something to that extent, because Black Adam isn't even really the main character. Most of the story really focuses on the characters, the Justice Society, and up until the last third, they're essentially the ones you're rooting for. The action is well shot, very reminiscent of Zack Snyder's films. All the characters play very well off each other, and this is one of the better entries on this list. It just needed to hone its focus in a bit better. Number 3, Wonder Woman. I have very few criticisms towards this movie. The story's interesting, all the characters are very likable, Diane and Steve are a great couple, the action is some of the best in the DCEU, the world building and how it ties into Greek mythology for the most part is done very well, but the first third is a bit rushed, and some parts feel a bit derived from the first Captain America movie, and David Thewlis is one of the biggest miscasts in the DCEU. Even after it's revealed that he's Ares the God of War, they don't really do much to change his look. They basically just put him in CGI armor with a few minor tweaks. They don't make him look like this big scary monster. And all I can see is Lupin from Harry Potter, so it's hard for me to take him seriously as a bad guy. Number 2, Man of Steel. Zack Snyder brings a very different, much grimmer, more serious take on Superman. Up to this point, the Superman films have been pretty corny, and Superman wasn't really meant to be a character you could relate to. Snyder comes in and humanizes him, giving him emotion and making him feel like a more fleshed out character. Michael Shannon is fantastic as General Zod, but there are a few things that hold this movie back. 1, it feels long just for the sake of being long. It's almost 2.5 hours, and it could have been cut down to about an even 2 hours. And story-wise, it feels more like a TV miniseries edited together as a movie rather than a movie. So there are some issues with the way the plot flows, and the allegory and symbolism are not subtle at all. Snyder really hits you over the head with what he thinks is brilliant, but it really comes off more as pretentious. But other than that, it's still the best Superman movie we've ever gotten. And coming at number 1 is my personal favorite in the DCU is Shazam, a film that injects some much-needed lightheartedness and fun into the DCU. The main character is easy to sympathize with. Zachary Levi is very believable at playing a child trapped in an adult's body. There's a lot of sweetness and heart to it, but the villain's motivations are just Syndrome from Incredibles, and there are some darker moments in the film that, given how fairly lighthearted the rest of it is, kind of feel out of place. So there are a few issues here and there, but overall, there's a lot of great humor, and it's a very, very enjoyable film. I have a lot of fun with it every time I watch it, so it comes in at number 1. So go ahead and share your ranking of the DCU films, and you can include Birds of Prey, you can include James Gunn's Suicide Squad, you can include the extended cuts. This is just my list. Let me see your list in the comments, and I'll see you next time.